Welcome to episode 6 of Act As If. Thanks so much for being here today. In today's show, we're going to talk about something that a lot of us spend our lives avoiding, something that a lot of us spend our lives running from. And I know because I spent a lot of my life running from this thing, and it shaped my life journey, and it caused me more suffering throughout my life than was necessary. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about pain. What do you think the deepest suffering in our life comes from? Do you think it comes from the challenging things that happen to us? I think, and thousands of years of tradition of Buddhism actually sort of back me up on this, that our deepest suffering in life doesn't come from the things that happen to us or even from our pain. Our deepest suffering comes from avoiding our pain, from trying to push pain away, from pretending like it doesn't exist, from not being willing to address pain. What was my deepest pain? My deepest pain was the feeling that I was not in control because I had a childhood that led me to feel out of control. I didn't feel safe in my childhood home. I didn't feel in control. I didn't feel empowered. And so I went into life, I created a career around trying to feel in control, trying to feel empowered, trying to push away from that feeling that had followed me since I was a kid, that I didn't feel empowered, that I didn't feel in control of my life. And instead of going into that feeling, instead of acknowledging that I feel disempowered, instead of acknowledging that I don't feel safe, I built a life designed to make me feel safe. And a lot of us do this. We build lives, we build careers as almost a reaction to things we went through earlier in life without even realizing that we're doing it, until we reach a point in midlife where we've built the thing we've spent our life dreaming of building. And I built the thing that I'd spent my own life dreaming of building for 25 years of my career as a designer. I reached a point of having a big impact on the world, being in a position of influence, authority, respect, making a lot of money. But something big was still missing. I got everything I wanted on the outside, so why didn't I feel happy inside? And most importantly, what are you meant to do about it when you work your whole life towards something that you think is going to lead you to feel the way you've always wanted to feel, and it still doesn't? And you don't know what else to do. You don't know what else is available. I'll tell you what else is available. Welcome to episode 6 of Act As If. Act As If is a show about stepping into who you really are, who you're really meant to be, what you're really here to do. Acting as if is the key to unlocking your next chapter, whatever that is, even if you have no idea what your next chapter looks like, even if you don't even believe that there is a next chapter for you. Act As If is about acting as if you're just getting started, acting as if your best days are still ahead of you, even if you're in midlife, even if you feel like you've achieved everything that you came into this world to achieve, if you're not deeply fulfilled, if you don't feel like you're doing the deepest work that you came here to do, there's still more for you. If you still don't feel like you've had the impact that you came here to have, there's more for you. And Act As If is about stepping into your life, greeting your life. I want you to greet your life today. I want this to be the day that is a turning point where you step back into your relationships and your work and the way you feel within yourself, from the perspective that you're just getting started. In Buddhism, people talk a lot about the idea of beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is the idea of approaching your life every day, approaching everything you do from the perspective of not knowing anything, because too often we get into routines and habits and patterns and conditioned ways of thinking about the things that we do. And when that happens, we actually stop seeing what's right in front of us. We stop seeing the opportunities in front of us. We stop seeing ways that we can be more creative in our life, and ways that we can solve the problems that are in front of us in novel ways, because creativity is the key to unlocking doors to great possibility in your life. Whatever you really want doesn't live on the other side of working harder. You're not going to go work another 20 years. You're not going to go push yourself and hustle and suffer another 20 years and then finally get to where you want to be. You're going to achieve what you really deeply, truly want to achieve through an act of creativity, through changing your perspective and your approach, through bringing beginner's mind to what you're doing, letting the universe express something through you. Midlife is a time to stop pushing and stop acting in the ways that we were trained to act through our upbringings, through school, and instead allow something to emerge through you, to allow something to be expressed through you. That's what these years are about. And if you're here having achieved a lot and wondering, well, what's next? How do I get to the next thing? How do I really find deep fulfillment in my work? It's not through pushing harder. It's through taking a step back, pausing, opening up, being willing to receive, sitting in silence for however long you need to, until you get an impulse and the universe says, this is what you're meant to do next. And you think of a way of approaching your life, your business, your relationships that you hadn't thought of before. And suddenly that new approach leads you to a new place. And that new approach is only going to come out of being willing to become a different version of yourself, to step beyond the habits and the patterns that have defined you up until now. Because let's be honest, all most of us really are is a collection of habits and patterns and conditioned thinking. How many times a day do you have the same thought? What would happen if you learned to have new thoughts? Well, you can reinvent yourself at any time, at any age. And it starts with understanding yourself. It starts with learning to take an honest look at yourself, and going back to what I brought up in the beginning, being willing to face your pain. What's your pain? What did you go through? We've all had difficult experiences in life. Some of us have been through more challenging things than others. But a lot of the time it becomes so easy to build a life around trying to avoid our deepest pain, thinking that eventually we'll fully outrun it, we'll fully escape the gravity of that pain, and then we'll finally be liberated. We'll finally be free. We'll finally have a life that lets us relax and feel connected in all the ways we've wanted to be connected. But let me tell you this, that life, the liberation that the Buddha talked about, it's not on the other side of outrunning your pain. Buddha said, wherever you go, eventually you will find suffering. Does that mean you have to suffer for the rest of your life? No. A lot of people interpret the teachings of Buddha, and I'm talking a lot about Buddhism here, not because I am a Buddhist and not because I'm religious, even though I don't totally think of Buddhism as a religion, even though it is. But the Buddha left us a really clear path to how to achieve enlightenment, how to be more fulfilled in life. But my point was, it's easy to interpret Buddha's teachings as that you have to suffer, because one of Buddha's first noble truths was that suffering is part of life. That doesn't mean you have to suffer. It means that suffering is a natural state of being that a lot of us find ourselves in. Most of the world is suffering, and we don't need to suffer. So why do we suffer? We suffer because we run away from ourselves. We avoid the pain and the discomfort that's inside of us that is maybe a result of things we went through in the past. And instead of addressing our wounds and our pain, we build lives to try and outrun our pain by making enough money or attaining enough prestige or comforts. The Buddha grew up in a palace. He had a very comfortable life, and maybe like you, like me, built had all the comforts of the world around him, but still wasn't fulfilled. And so he went out into the woods seeking something else, and he found enlightenment. And it's the simplest thing in the world. And the thing is, enlightenment's available to all of us. We just have to slow down and listen to ourselves. And importantly, I think the piece a lot of us miss is that we have to be willing to sit with our pain. And I think a lot of us don't sit with our pain. And I didn't sit with my own pain for a lot of my life because there were some dark things inside of me. There were some really dark thoughts, and I could very easily start spiraling into darkness, land in a dark hole of depression that I was afraid I might not be able to find my way out of again. And I felt that way a lot throughout my life. But what I eventually learned is that when you let yourself be with yourself, when you let yourself go to those places inside of you that you've been afraid to go, whether that's just through sitting in meditation, whether that's going on a hike, whether it's working with plant medicine, whether it's going to therapy, whether it's just looking in the mirror and having a conversation with yourself in a way that maybe you've never done before. Through learning to dialogue with those parts of yourself that maybe you've been running from or trying to change or trying to avoid, there's a shift that takes place. And what you learn is that you don't need to run away from yourself. What you learn is there's nothing outside of yourself that can give you something that's not already available inside of you, because everything we want in life is really about the inner experience that we want to have. You wouldn't want whatever you wanted if you were going to feel terrible inside, right? So I think it's important to think about the inner experience of what you want. And that means, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel in this next chapter of your life? Act as if is about realizing that if there's something different you want in your life, and you shift how you feel, which is within your power to